3 years after climbers vanished on El Capitan, the shocking truth found will haunt you forever. In the cold dawn of June 15, 2023, a discovery was made high on the granite walls of El Capitan that would chill anyone who heard the tale. 3 years ago, a group of climbers, 4 friends, bound by adventure, vanished without a trace. Evaporated into thin air, leaving behind only whispers and wild theories about their fate. But what was found that morning? A tattered backpack, its zippers gaping like a mouth gasping for breath, nestled on a ledge 20 feet above the last climb they attempted. Inside, somewhat intact, lay fragmented remnants of a life once lived, a crumpled map, a diary with faded entries, and, most haunting of all, a half-eaten granola bar, still fresh as if they'd just left it there. The air tasted different here. It was thick with an unshakable tension that seemed to wrap around everyone who approached the site. Locals whispered of a curse, claiming the rock was hungry, drawing climbers to their demise. Each gasp and murmur echoed through the valley. Wildlife no longer roamed freely. Squirrels froze, birds stopped chirping, and even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Eyes opened wide, bodies frozen in disbelief, as the curious gathered. Who would dare scale such heights again? Then came the first eerie finding in the diary, scrawled hastily: "We can hear whispers, they're calling us to stay." These simple words sent shivers down the spines of those reading them aloud, a stark reminder of the unknown that lingered above them. The haunting question hung palpably in the air: what had happened to the climbers? Were they still up there, trapped between earth and sky, or had they crossed into something far darker? Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. A flicker of movement caught the attention of the crowd. A figure emerged from the trees, a local, Carl, known for his uncanny ability to read the mountain. He climbed to the very spot where the backpack lay, his hands trembling, pulling out the diary with care. As he read, the atmosphere thickened. "It's a warning," he muttered, turning pale. They knew something was coming for them. The crowd leaned in, ears straining, heartbeats rising. Who could resist the cliffhanger of it all? What something lurked in those towering cliffs? What dark truth was El Capitan desperately trying to hide? As the sun began to set, painting the sky with blood-red hues, Carl shut the diary with a definitive thud. It echoed like a closing chapter after a thrilling tale, but didn't end the story. Instead, it opened the door wide for a pathway into horror. A shiver ran down every spine. Was this just the beginning of unraveling a terrifying mystery that would haunt everyone forever? With the sun dipping lower, casting long shadows on the ground, Carl's shock morphed into urgency. The whispers had stirred something deep within him, a primal fear surfacing that he couldn't shake off. He glared up at the towering rock face, where the sky kissed the granite. Darkness pooled in those crevices, like a hidden abyss. "What do you mean?" someone shouted from the gathered crowd. "What do the whispers want?" Carl took a shaky breath. The words swirled in his mind, chaotic and fragmented. The diary pages danced with unspoken truths, each pulse echoing louder than the last. "They call out for company," Carl finally said, voice strained. "It's like they're trapped and don't want to be alone." A ripple of fear spread among the crowd. Faces paled, eyes widened. Dread swept through the onlookers like a cold breeze. Some began to back away from the cliff's edge, grounding themselves in the reality of what Carl hinted at. "We've got to get out of here. It's not safe." A woman cried, backing up, her voice trembling. But a small group remained, moored to the terror that gripped them. They were thrill seekers, daring those shadows above to pull them in. "You can't be serious," one of them said defiantly, glancing at the others for support. "This is just a story. We can't let fear hold us back." But what if it's not? Someone interjected, almost pleading now. What if there is something up there? Something we don't understand? The sun finally disappeared, the world sliding into twilight. As the temperature dropped, the whispers seemed to rejuvenate, rising like smoke on the crisp air. Carl's heart raced, nerves prickled under his skin like static. We can't ignore this. We need to go back, look for them. He exclaimed, desperate to inject a sense of reality into the growing hysteria. Some nodded, an unsettling unity forming, while others shook their heads in adamant disbelief. The tension crackled like thunder, thick enough to slice through. Suddenly, a deafening crack echoed from above. Everyone looked up, frozen in fear. A small cascade of gravel tumbled down the cliffside, rattling on the stones below. Did you see that? One man gasped, stepping back instinctively. Something's up there. A chilling realization washed over Carl. It wasn't only the climber's fate that hung in the balance, the mountain itself seemed alive, watchful and waiting, craving to keep its secret. The crowd disbanded, panic breaking the facade of bravery. Carl watched them scatter, a few daring souls hiking back toward the base in defiance. But one figure remained the defiant climber, more eager than ever to challenge fate. If they're up there, I need to find them. I have to know the truth. As the mountain loomed above, dark and imposing, Carl's stomach twisted with newfound urgency. The whispers amplified in a discordant symphony, echoing his fear and intrigue. Could he let this happen again? Would the mountain swallow another group of climbers whole? Or could unraveling the secret behind the whispers save them all? With night's grip tightening around El Capitan, Carl's heart raced as he began to scale the rocky terrain, each handhold met with urgency. As the first stars pricked the sky, he murmured, "What have I gotten myself into?" Just then, a voice soft and soothing, yet tinged with an unearthly echo drifted down the mountain. "Stay with us." Carl hesitated, every hair standing on end. Who or what was calling him? What lay ahead in that shadowy embrace? As he climbed, the night consumed him, and the whispers grew louder, more insistent. Something was waiting for him on the ledge, and it hungered. The night wrapped around Carl like a dense fog, swallowing sounds until only the whispers remained, intoxicating yet terrifying. "Stay with us." The voice, haunting and soft, filled the air, wrapping around him like a lover's embrace, but colder, darker. He gritted his teeth, pushing himself higher, every thought consumed by the need to uncover the source. What awaited him up there? A revelation or a loss he might not recover from. Each handhold felt more fragile than the last as he contended with the rock, feeling the mountain's pulse beneath his fingers. The whispers morphed into a dissonant chant, beckoning him further into the cavernous unknown. Carl's heart hammered against his ribs, his breaths quickened as he reached a narrow ledge. He paused, glancing back down, the scattered lights of the retreating crowd like scattered stars lost amidst darkness. He was utterly alone now, the weight of his decision settling heavily over him. "What have I done?" he murmured, the question lost to the night. A shiver crept along his spine, a sense of urgency rising and forcing him to press on. As he edged closer to the dark crevice at the top of the ledge, the whispers became louder, more desperate. "Come, we need you." What do you need me for?" Carl's voice faltered. His own echo layered over the whispers, twisting around him. Then came a sudden silence, an arresting stillness he couldn't comprehend. The air thickened, and he took a shaky step forward, feeling as if he were an actor on a precipice, teetering at the edge of some grand stage. Movement caught the corner of his eye. Just above him, shadows flitted, covering the rocky surface like smoke. He squinted, trying to make sense of the darkness swirling above. "Is anyone up there?" he called out, hoping to cut through the eerie stillness. The response came not in words but in a low rumble emanating from the mountain, the very essence of El Capitan shuddering beneath his feet. The world around him felt like it was alive. He could feel it breathing. Suddenly, a flash of light burst from the crevice, illuminating numerous figures huddled at the mouth, all faces obscured by gray, ethereal wisps. They were watching him, eyes glowing with a mix of anticipation and despair. Instinctively, Carl stumbled back, nearly losing his grip. "What do you want?" he shouted, panic coursing through him. With a sickening slowness, one figure stepped forward, the glimmering light reflecting an unearthly sheen off a face that was both familiar and foreign. It was Laura, one of the climbers who had vanished 3 years prior. Her expression was haunting, a mix of longing and desperation, her lips parting to form a word he couldn't hear. Time froze. Carl's heart seized in his chest. What could she possibly mean? "Laura!" he gasped, uncertainty flooding him. Did he truly see her? Or was this a trick of the shadows, a cruel tease by the mountain? The figure reached out a hand, beckoning him closer. The whispers crescendoed, a maddening chant that echoed through the wild caverns of his mind. "Stay with us." He could see it then, an almost tangible darkness swirling behind Laura, creeping forward, a void blooming with untold secrets and unfulfilled cries. The realization hit him hard, nearly bringing him to his knees. The mountain hadn't only held on to its secrets. It had devoured them. With a burst of courage fueled by adrenaline, Carl took a step forward, feeling the weight of his choice press down on him. What was he willing to sacrifice to find out the truth? Or to rescue those lost souls? As Carl strained to reach Laura's outstretched hand, the shadows surged forward, a wave of darkness that enveloped him whole. "Help us!" came the desperate rasp of many voices uniting as one, their cry crashing into him, sending sparks of fear through his body. The invitation to join their fates hovered like a potent nectar, calling, persuading. The whispers were no longer just pleas, they were promises of knowledge intertwined with despair. He was teetering on the brink of an abyss, the weight of those lost souls heavy against his heart. Could he turn back now, or had he already crossed the threshold into something far more dangerous? Then a chilling thought struck him. Maybe the mountain craved more than just souls, perhaps it yearned for sacrifice. As he stood there, suspended between fear and the promise of the unknown, he realized the shadows weren't just waiting to claim him, they were reaching for something more. "Stay with us," the chorus echoed like a fatal promise, wrapping around him, binding him to the fate he desperately sought to uncover. What would he discover in the depths of that darkness? What truths lay buried within the cold granite as the whispers beckoned him onward? Carl's world blurred into a whirlpool of uncertainty as the shadows embraced him, the whispers swelling into a cacophony that vibrated in his bones. The air turned electric, snagging at his skin like static before slamming him against a wall of cold clarity. He teetered there, suspended between fear and an insatiable curiosity. "Laura!" he cried, desperate to pull her back from the brink, from whatever fate had entwined her in this spectral haze. The faces around her flickered like candle flames, shadows of the past hovering just out of reach as a dark, pulsating shroud shivered forward. "Come closer." Laura's voice drifted, tantalizingly sweet but laced with an undercurrent of despair. "You don't understand, we're lost." The word echoed in Carl's mind like a thunderclap, sending a tremor through his chest. He fought to process her plea, the haunting truth of those who had vanished over 3 years ago eclipsing everything he thought he knew. They weren't dead, they were here, trapped on this nightmarish ledge between the living and the lost. As he stepped toward her, drawn in like a moth to flame, the light dimmed, and a chill slid along the back of his neck. Figures emerged from the shadows, each one more twisted than the last, their faces contorted in silent screams. They were echoes, reminders of lives cut short, a collage of lost hopes that clawed at his heart. "Help us!" their voices merged into one, wrapping around him, compelling him closer. Carl's instincts screamed at him to run, yet his feet felt rooted to the ground. The weight of their suffering hung heavily in the air, igniting an ache he couldn't ignore. "Stop!" he yelled, voice rising above the chaos. "What do you want from me?" In that desperate moment of defiance, the figures halted, their opaque forms harmonizing into a single, breathless silence that crushed the night. The atmosphere grew thick with anticipation. Laura's eyes glimmered, shifting from hopelessness to something akin to gratitude. "We need you to remember," she whispered, her hand still reaching, trembling with urgency. "What happened to us? You're the only one who can tell our story." He had to remember. Carl felt a rush of memories flood back, racing to the forefront of his mind, the laughter, the camaraderie, their ascent up the mountain. He could still hear the cheers, feel the warmth of the sun on his back, but there was something darker lurking just below the surface. "Tell me. What do I have to do?" The desperation in his voice broke through the stillness, pushing back against the shadows that threatened to overtake him. A flicker of recognition exchanged between Laura and the dark figures, each locking eyes with him as fragmented memories started piecing together horrific truths. The whispers turned sharper, now sharper than knives, seeking the reveal of long-buried secrets. "Your choice is binding," a hollow voice intoned from the depths, a reminder of the sacrifice waiting to be made. With each passing second, Carl's mind raced. If he could just grasp hold of the truth that had eluded him, perhaps he could save them and himself. Memories of the last climb haunted him, the tension, the warning signs no one saw, the storm that had torn them apart, but maybe they had been right, they had ventured into the unknown, ignorant of the mountainous fury. Had they paid the price? The shadows twisted tighter around them, pooling in a darkness that suffocated. "You must choose, Carl. Will you join us or break the cycle?" The voices surged, a frantic plea that echoed into the night. That he teetered on the precipice of the abyss, caught between fear and valor, pushing past his own doubts, the decision looming before him. What sacrifice would it demand? And what if the price was more horrific than he could possibly imagine? "What if I refuse?" he whispered into the void, breath hitching in disbelief. The answer was in the silence that followed, a heavy, suffocating weight that promised consequences he couldn't escape. With terror raging in his heart, Carl understood, the mountain wasn't just a backdrop to their lives, it was a keeper of souls, waiting for him to make his choice. Would he claim the truth and risk losing everything, or would the darkness claim him as it had claimed them? The shadows pulsed, stretching toward Carl like yearning fingers. They moved closer, swirling around him, wrapping him tighter in the cold embrace of what he could barely comprehend. A cacophony rose, a choir of souls, with every whimper and whisper thrumming against his very sanity. Panic clawed at his insides. He had to think, he had to act. "Laura." His voice tore through the thick silence, raw with disbelief. "What happened to you? What do you want me to remember?" As if prompted by his question, visions exploded in his mind. Fragments of laughter mixed with piercing screams, like a jumbled record skipping through joy into terror. He saw them, the group of climbers, his friends, vibrant and alive, reaching for heights that beckoned them like an irresistible allure. And yet, darkness danced at the edges of those memories, an unfinished narrative that haunted every smile. "No!" he shouted, clenching his fists. "I want to let this take me." Laura's form flickered, wavering before him. "You must decide. We're trapped, Carl. Trapped by the truth we buried in those mountains." Each word was like an icy blade, piercing the fog that clouded his mind. "What truth?" His voice trembled with frustration, teetering on the brink of despair. "What are you hiding from me?" The flickering figures surged forward, their faces morphing into grotesque masks of despair. It was as if the mountain itself echoed their pain, vibrating with the weight of untold secrets. "You must remember the storm. The others. The choice." The fatal choice. He felt his heart race, memories pressing into him like an avalanche. He recalled the data they'd gathered beforehand, the warnings dismissed, the storm they'd weathered before reaching the summit, the ominous signs that they had shrugged off. Each reluctant thought added pressure, suffocating in its insistence. "Whatever happened, I wasn't, you were." The collective scream enveloped him, resonating in the very marrow of his bones. The ground shook beneath him, and for a split second, he could see everything, that last moment before chaos, the tension so thick it suffocated reason, and their faces twisted in panic as nature unleashed its fury. "Choose." Laura's voice broke through the tumult, clear and piercing. She reached out, longing yet fearful. "You must face the truth. Save us, Carl. Only you can break the cycle." He felt them pulling him in, trying to force him to confront what lay buried deep in his memory. His chest tightened, gasping for breath. What if I don't want to? In refusing, you become part of the cycle. The shadows coiled tighter, a living tapestry of despair. You will share our fate, a forsaken spirit among the others. In that moment, he dug deep within himself, essence stirring with a burning resolve. He wouldn't go down without a fight. I will remember. He cried, clenching his fists at the shadows. I will expose the truth, and I will save you. And just like that, with the declaration hanging in the air, a blinding light surged through the shadows, a painful brightness that split the darkness, casting silhouettes against the walls. He could almost touch that light, feel its promise wrapping around him, but as quickly as it materialized, the light flickered and darkness clawed back at him. Faces twisted in anger and sorrow surged forward, their expressions a flurry of emotions, hope, anger, despair. No! He shouted, his voice drowning beneath the rising chaos. I won't lose you. Suddenly, the ground beneath him shuddered violently. Was it the mountain again, or something deeper, darker? Carl felt his knees buckle, a sudden pull dragging him downward, then everything shifted. He was falling. And the whispers grew louder, the faces merging into one, a singular entity, pleading, crying, demanding. Remember us. With a rush of cold air filling his lungs, Carl fell through the abyss, and it felt like being swallowed whole. Where would he end up? And would there be a way back to the light? In that moment of abject terror, as the darkness consumed him, he realized this was not just a descent into despair. This was a journey into the truth, a truth that would reveal everything about the mountain and about himself. Would the truth be his salvation or his ruin? And who else might be waiting to greet him at the bottom? Carl's world erupted in a whirlwind of shadows and whispers that echoed around him. He grasped at the veil of darkness, fingers slipping through it as if it were water. Panic surged again, tightening in his chest. This couldn't be it. He had to fight. Please. He screamed into the void. Let me remember. Silence answered him, a heavy, oppressive silence that bore down like the weight of 1,000 unanswered questions. He felt his heart thrumming, irregular and desperate, as he fought the tide pulling him deeper. But it was too strong. The darkness coalesced around him, an old friend he wished he could forget. Then, as if in response to his plea, a memory surged forth. A vivid image flickered, a snowy landscape, sunlight glinting off ice-coated rocks. Their laughter carried through the air, pure, untainted. But underneath it, he sensed an undercurrent growing, a storm brewing on the outskirts of their joy. He shook his head, straining to capture the moment fully, to unearth the truth. No. No. He cried, feeling the grip of darkness tighten, but the light was there, too, surging just beyond his reach. It pulsated, flickering like a faulty bulb. Come on. Show me. The laughter morphed into frenzied screams, and the mountains loomed large, threatening. The group of climbers flashed before him, Mark, Jenna, Sarah, his friends who had believed in conquering the impossible. He could almost hear his own voice calling out to them, urging them to turn back. Turn back. He shouted to the faces swirling around him. But they were frozen, trapped in their own anguish, a tableau of regret he could not escape. Suddenly, he was falling again, this time gravity pulling against something heavier, a realization rooted deep within his soul. Their last argument. Do we wait? Or do we risk it? The memory rolled out like a film reel. He saw the flicker of indecision in their eyes. We'll miss the summit. Mark had pushed, and there was a chaotic energy he couldn't ignore. They had all agreed, against their better judgment, to press on. The shadow things warred for his attention, clawing at him with whispered accusations. You could have stopped them. You knew better. You killed them. No. A roar erupted from deep within, coursing through him like molten fire. I didn't. Suddenly, he was standing again, chest heaving, surrounded by an ethereal mist that swirled with life and memory. The voices of his lost friends were now more than just echoes. They were pleading for him to confront the truth. And there, at the center of the swirling chaos, was Laura, shimmering and real. "Carl!" she cried, reaching for him. "You must break the cycle. We are waiting for you to make it right." He pushed forward, inching closer, darkness clawing at him, tearing at the seams of his resolve. "What do you need me to do? Tell me. I can't lose you all again." With each movement, the whispers grew shriller, faces melting into one another, voices sharpening to a piercing scream. "Face it. Face it." They swarmed him, and at that moment, he felt that pull again, deeper and darker than anything he had ever felt. "Laura!" he gasped, desperation firing through him. "What do I need to remember? What did we choose?" "Everything," she whispered, and her form began to dim, fading like the last rays of twilight. "You must face the storm, Carl. Only then can you save us." He felt a surge, an overwhelming desire to confront whatever lay beneath the surface, the storm clenching its icy fist around reality. "I'll find the truth," he vowed, strength flooding his veins. "I won't let you down." But just then, the shadows lunged at him, a fierce wave cascading. The darkness rolled over him, and he felt himself being drawn back into the void. Memories morphed once more, images stabbing through the haze, slicing into raw terror. Then he was back at the mountain's edge, faced with an impossible choice. The wind howled around him, fierce and taunting, and he realized there were others. Others facing the same storm, his friends hidden within the shadows. Who else might rise to confront the truth, and what if it was already too late? The wind screamed in his ears, a relentless reminder of looming danger. Carl stood on the precipice, breathless, heart pounding like a drum in a desperate march. The icy air sliced through him, but he felt more alive than ever, alive and desperate. Here at the edge, he sensed the storm was rising, threatening to swallow everything in its path. His friends, were they hidden in the shadows, lost in that all-consuming darkness? "Turn back." His own words echoed across the desolate landscape. What choice remained other than to move forward? Somewhere out there lay the memory of their final moments, a truth he needed to uncover. He had promised Laura he would face it, but terror racked him. What if he wasn't strong enough? What if he failed again? The shadows whispered, insidious and persistent. "You let them down. Why would this time be different?" Silencing them was harder now. He turned away from the depth of their accusations, forcing himself to focus ahead. The mountain loomed, its silence challenges him, mocking him for his hesitation. Just beyond the ridge, he could see a flicker of movement. "Help!" A voice drifted towards him, tenuous like a thread. Could it be Jenna? "Carl!" Her terrified cry sounded as real as the frost coating the ground. He stumbled forward, each step pulling him deeper into the visions that plagued him. Shadows dove and darted around him, circling closely and pushing back at his resolve. What if it was another trick? A cruel joke played by something darker than he could comprehend? No. Not this time. He shouted, clearing the stinging air from his lungs. Clenching his fists, he called into the biting wind. "Show me the truth. If you have her, just show me." And then he saw her. Jenna stood against a slate-gray sky, eyes wide and glistening with tears of fright and betrayal. We thought we could conquer it," she sputtered, her voice trembling with icy desperation. "Carl, I am scared. I can't remember what happened." A blame flickered in the shadows around Carl, shadows that pulsed like living things. He swallowed hard. "I will not lose you too." A burst of clarity surged through him, the visualization of their last ascent. He gritted his teeth. "I have to know what happened that day. If it means saving you all, I'll face it." Suddenly, the ground began to tremble beneath him, rumbling like a beast awakening from slumber. "Carl!" Jenna grabbed for him, her presence diminishing. "The storm, it's coming. You have to make a choice." The air crackled. A sudden surge of cold wind blasted past him, disorienting, as the mountain rumbled with fury. In that moment, Carl felt the weight of treachery and fury descend over him, a storm of regret crashing violently against his conscience. Memories surged back, now vivid and chaotic, the sharp faces of his friends frozen in fear, eyes darting wildly. It all glided together like a sinister painting, the bright colors now darkened by the pile of choices never made. Then another voice broke through the chaos, a deeper, more ominous echo. Face your choices, Carl. They will rescue you or consume you. Carl's heart sunk. There among the shadows, he understood. Choices didn't just change the past, they forged the present. But to reclaim the truth, he had to dive into the very shadows that haunted him. He took a deep breath, steeling himself against the storm's wrath. I will find you. I will find the truth. But even as he shouted, the wind screamed back, swirling his defiance, and a deeper darkness coiled hungrily around him. The choice clawed at him: would he plunge into the storm and reveal the secrets, or would he, too, be lost to the night? As the tempest roared, Carl felt the pull of fate tightening around him, the storm drawing near. He had taken the first step, but was it the right one? What awaited him in the heart of the chaos? Would the truth lead to salvation or devastation? A crack of thunder shattered the air, sending vibrations through Carl's bones. The storm had rapidly morphed from a distant threat into a monstrous presence, hovering just above him, its icy breath looming in the growing darkness. A primal instinct begged him to retreat, but the flicker of Jenna's form beckoned him to stand firm against the elements. Carl! She pleaded, her silhouette flickering like a flame about to be snuffed out. You have to remember. You have to make it right. He propelled himself forward, diving into the tempest. The biting gusts clawed at his face, stinging like a swarm of angry bees. Each step felt heavier, weighed down by memories that rose from the depths of his mind unbidden. Hard laughter, excited chatter, all shared with friends who were now lost, a tangible weight of anguish that surged up like a tidal wave. Think! He screamed, feeling raw panic. Think! What happened out there? A blinding flash illuminated the darkened sky, revealing the craggy cliffs of El Capitan looming high above. In that moment, fragments of conversation played behind his eyes, echoing warnings he had missed. They talked about trusting intuition, listening to the mountain's fundamental rules that now felt like ghosts. The wind howled, a furious crescendo that drowned his thoughts, but within it, he discerned whispers that trembled at the edges of his consciousness. You wanted adventure, Carl, you wanted to conquer. The words wove through the storm, taunting him. He had wanted to lead. To impress them. Was it worth it? He bellowed, his voice nearly lost in the chaos. All this? Was it worth your lives? As if in response, the shadows surged. Dark, swirling forms darted closer, breathing cold dread. You blame yourself, but what of your decisions? They hissed, echoing the voices of his friends he once cherished. No. You're wrong. He felt a surge of rage equal to the storm's ferocity. I can't let you take her. Amidst the combination of physical and emotional tumult, a realization struck him, a flash of clarity sharper than the winds, memories crashing together into focus. The final climb, the scree sliding beneath them, the desperate scramble as they lost ground. They had been warned, had felt the mountain's pulse shift ominously. And then something bigger loomed in his mind, something pivotal that must not be ignored. Those moments of indecision, the choice to push forward when they should have retreated, screamed at him through the memories like a siren, a stark reminder of how they had lost faith due to the thrill of the ascent. Carl's gaze hardened. For Jenna, for Laura, for all who shared that last breath of hope, he would challenge the storm and the shadows intertwined within it. I will face it. I will own our choices. Even as he rallied his resolve, the icy wind threatened to snuff out his fire. Jenna's visage flickered before him, slowly fading, the distance between them rapidly increasing as another wave of darkness surged forward, filling the air with tangible dread. Carl! Her voice cracked, wrestling against the tempest. You can't face it unless you accept. Accept what you lost. The ground shook violently beneath him, and Carl realized he stood on the brink not just of the mountain itself but of confronting everything: the pain, the loss, the regret. He took a staggering step back as the storm roared louder, but then he clenched his fists, and instead of retreating, he drew in a breath deep enough to set off a flash of clarity inside him. No more running. This time, he stepped forward into the heart of darkness, ready to fight for his lost friends and the truth buried deep within. The shadows writhed around him, the storm spiraled tighter, and as Carl plunged headfirst into the chaos, a final echo rang through his mind: face it, Carl. Face what you've become, for better or worse. Would he find the strength required, or would the dark shroud of the storm consume him, just like his friends before? The storm roared in response, as if the very mountain demanded payment for its secrets. What lay ahead? An answer, or deeper? Despair. The darkness waited. With the storm raging all around him, Carl pushed against the swell of darkness, eyes locked on the flickering beacon that was Jenna. Her light was a fragile thing, swaying with the winds but refusing to be extinguished. You have to remember. She hollered again, the urgency in her voice cutting through the howling chaos. Memories teased at the edges of his mind, frayed threads leading him back to the summit. Laughter, camaraderie, the thrill of the climb. But that thrill had morphed into their worst nightmare. He could almost hear Laura's laughter mingled with the shriek of the wind, her voice blending with the memory of the mountain's relentless grasp. Just one more push. Carl had said then, infatuated with his desire for glory. Hadn't he? They all wanted that. To conquer nature. To laugh in the face of danger. Now that dream felt hollow, the shadows encroached, whispering dark reminders of their mistakes. You were the leader, Carl. The one who chose the path. You led them to their doom. He flinched, gnashing his teeth. I didn't kill them. I didn't. But even as the words escaped him, he felt a crack in his resolve. Maybe, just maybe, there was some truth to their cruel jibes. Another jolt made the ground tremble. Carl teetered, but he dug his heels in. The storm lashed against him, fierce as 1,000 demons. He squeezed his eyes shut for a moment, focusing on Jenna's glowing form, a beacon cutting through the despair. Jenna! He shouted, what do I need to do? Tell me. The flicker of her figure steadied, her voice substantial. You need to see. The truth is hidden beneath the storm. In a moment of sheer determination, Carl took a deep breath and threw back his shoulders. Show me. Thunder crashed, and with it, the shadows shifted like a rising tide. Suddenly, he was no longer just standing on that rocky ledge but plunged into a vivid scene. He saw it all: the climb, the exhilaration, the tightening grip of anxiety that they shrugged off as excitement. He could see each of his friends, their wide eyes sparkling with ambition, unaware of the fate that waited. But something else unfolded, like a terrible secret. He was back at the point of no return, the edge of the precipice, where decisions had blurred the line between life and death. Turn back. Laura had pleaded then, her voice delicate as frost. We should have gone back a long time ago. And yet, he hadn't listened. He remembered the fear in Jenna's eyes, how it contrasted with the determination burning in his own. No. He gasped, feeling the truth strike him like lightning. I ignored your fear for my pride. The storm intensified, rage boiling over as the shadows shrieked in anger, circling closer, enveloping him. They wanted his despair, his confession. Carl clenched his fists and pressed forward. I want to remember. He shouted into the storm, I want the truth. Whatever it is. In response, a bolt of lightning cracked from the sky, illuminating the world starkly. The shadows froze for an instant, revealing glimpses of their final moments. Fallen rocks. Wild gasps. Faces contorted in fear. It wasn't just indecision, it was terror, raw and unfiltered. Face it. Jenna's voice, but it was stronger now, resonating like thunder through him. Just like that, the moment slipped across time, and Carl felt a wave of emotions choke him, grief mixing with resolution. He wasn't done yet, not with himself, and not with the memory of those lives intertwined with his. As he fought against the shadows, tears streamed down his face, mingling with the rain biting at his skin. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," he cried, his voice threading through the storm, but with every confession came a spark of clarity, a way forward woven into the tempest's fabric. The path ahead began to glow, not just with Jenna's light, but with a newfound understanding. This storm, this chaotic rush, had not come to simply destroy him. It had come to force him to reckon with the past. To transform pain into purpose, and when the lull came, a heavy silence enveloped the landscape. He felt the weight lift just enough. But then, from the fringes of darkness, a shadow loomed, larger than all before. It pulsed with an ominous power, beckoning Carl forward. What lies beyond? He breathed, eyes widening in disbelief. The mountain spoke, now even more alive, whispering secrets he could almost grasp. Somewhere deep within, the truth beckoned, and Carl stood on the precipice, ready to leap. Uncertain as he was, one thing echoed through him, a faint glimmer of hope. This was just the beginning. What awaited in that darkness? Would the truth make him whole, or would it plunge him into deeper despair? The storm prepared for the revelation, and Carl knew he had to brave it, for their memories. A heavy silence settled over the mountains, an electric anticipation hanging in the air as Carl steadied himself against the cold rock, heart racing. He felt the whispers recede, as though the mountain recognized his resolve, a moment of stillness before the storm returned with a vengeance. "Carl." Jenna's voice cut through the gloom, sharper than any wind. "You've come so far. This is the moment." He nodded, gathering his strength. The shadows loomed, swirling in chaotic dance, yet he felt a flicker of courage ignite within him, a flicker shared by his lost friends who still hovered just beyond his reach. "I won't let your memories fade. I promise to bring the truth to light." The wind howled, as if the mountain mocked his promise. But Carl pushed back. "You can't take me. I refuse to be part of your cycle." In that moment, the weight of his choice pressed down with unbearable gravity. Memories surged forward, haunting yet familiar, the laughter they shared, the paths they took, the choices left unmade. The voices of his friends echoed like a choir, each desperate plea wrapping around him, pulling him deeper into the swirling currents of regret. "Remember us," they implored, their faces flickering in and out like dying stars. "You're our only hope." With resolve tightening around his heart like a vice, Carl stepped into the shadows. The air thickened, swirling around him, igniting a thunderstorm of emotions. He reached out, desperate to grasp the truth that had eluded him for so long. "Face it, Carl." Laura's words rang clear, cutting through the tempest. "You need to confront what you've been avoiding." Suddenly, he was flung back into the past. "Just one more push. We can do it." His voice echoed as they stood at the precipice, eyes bright with ambition, but then he saw it, the thick clouds that had gathered, the warning signs they all had ignored. The hairs on his neck prickled, a deep-rooted fear clawing at him. "Turn back." Laura's voice resonated, her gaze piercing and true. "No. We're almost there." The thrill of conquest had clouded his judgment, ensnaring them all in a web of folly. He saw it all unravel, the stones cascading down, their screams swallowed by the roar of nature. "Too late." He yelled, anguish pouring from his heart. The storm surged, shadows screaming, a cacophony of accusations that surrounded him. "Your pride ended our lives." The omnipresent shadow taunted. "You led them here." "Enough." Carl roared, and in that defiance, strength surged through him like a tidal wave. "You won't own me. I refuse to be your pawn." With every ounce of will, he faced the shadow that pulsed closer, feeling the ice of despair seep into his bones. "I will remember, and I will share your truth." The mountain shook, cracking beneath the tumult. The darkness trembled at his declaration, shadows retreating only to coil back in fury. No more running. Carl shouted, tears cutting through the storm's fury. I take responsibility. With awareness flooding his veins, he surged forward, plunging into the heart of the storm. The rush of memories enveloped him the moment before the chaos, his friend's hope intertwined with his pride. He embraced the weight of his guilt, letting it hammer against his chest as he pressed on. Remember us. Tell our story. The voices echoed, powerful and united. Carl reached within, plunging deeper into the specters of his memories, carving paths through the torturous anguish. I will light their truth. I will make sure this never happens again. As if answering his vow, the winds howled louder, forming a cyclone of yearning and hope. The very essence of El Capitan reverberated around him, its ancient strength mingling with his, pushing him forward into the heart of the storm. Stand with us, Jenna's voice anchored him, vibrant and full of life. Remember who we were. Light pierced through the darkness, illuminating their faces, binding them together across time. In that moment, he felt their spirits flare beside him, a brush of warmth against the coldness of fear. Together they surged, propelled by the bonds of friendship and love. For life. We will be known. Carl declared, his voice resonant against the raging storm. As the truth cascaded from his lips, he could feel the darkness begin to lift. Time churned around him as moments passed in snippets, fragmented yet vivid. He saw them all: Mark's infectious laughter, Sarah's indomitable spirit, the adventure they had longed for. Every joyful memory intertwined seamlessly with the shadows, illuminating who they had been. The storm finally receded, giving way to sunlight that cast a golden hue over the rocky land. Carl blinked, standing at the summit, now a threshold beckoning to him, radiant against the dark landscape behind. That he embraced the brightness, knowing it wasn't over. It was only the beginning of weaving their truths into a tapestry of remembrance. He turned, ready to plunge back into the world below, determined to share the truth that El Capitan had kept hostage for too long. As Carl descended, a sense of serene clarity washed over him. The whispers had quieted, and though the mountain remained majestic, he now understood it held secrets but also cherished life. For every life lost, there was a story to be told, a legacy to honor. He would ensure that no one would ever face the mountain's perilous whispers unprepared again. And as he returned to the base, surrounded by those who loved him and cared, a newfound fire lit within him. This truth, it will change everything. He vowed, a spark igniting a promise for those who came after. Their memories wouldn't vanish into the shadows. No, they would blaze brightly, guiding others to safety and courage, telling the story of what had happened and what should never be forgotten. The journey wasn't just as it was theirs, woven forever into the heart of the mountain, unyielding and eternal. So, if you felt a connection to this gripping tale, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now, so you don't miss our next exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help our community grow. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this epic conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful ending. Let us keep the spirit of adventure alive together.